Jasmine collapsed on the floor, tears streaming down her face, screaming that she had lost everything. Matt had ended it, and in that single moment, her world fell apart. Could this breakup actually shatter everything they've built together? Everything, the new home, the baby, the hopes of a family, seemed to crumble in an instant. But what happened next shocked everyone. Rumors of secret messages, family pressure, and a custody twist were waiting just around the corner. And no one saw the subtle betrayals piling up in silence. The words Matt allegedly whispered, the decisions made behind closed doors, the whispers of a replacement lurking in the shadows. Jasmine thought she understood him, she thought she could hold on to this family. But the ground was shifting beneath her, and every step forward only pulled her deeper into chaos. And right as it seemed things couldn't get worse, a single revelation hit that changed everything. If you thought the last episode was intense, wait until you hear what led up to this moment. Matt and Jasmine had been walking on eggshells for weeks. You could see it in the tiny silences, the way Jasmine hesitated before speaking, and the way Matt seemed to retreat further into himself. On camera, they smiled, they laughed, they acted like everything was normal, but anyone paying attention could sense the cracks forming beneath the surface. Jasmine, as always, was giving everything. Her hope was palpable. She believed this was her second chance at building the family she had always dreamed of, the life she thought she deserved. And you could feel the pressure weighing on her with every passing day. Parenthood was supposed to bring them closer, but instead, it amplified every insecurity, every fear, every unspoken tension. She was holding a newborn, carrying her own past heartbreaks, and trying to balance Matt's unpredictability. You know that moment when you think everything's fine, then it isn't. That's exactly where they were. Meanwhile, Matt was doing his best to stay afloat. But doing his best looked a little different than what Jasmine needed. He was quietly withdrawing, avoiding the intense emotions, and sometimes, even avoiding conversations entirely. From the outside, it looked like calm, steady behavior. But inside, the emotional distance was growing faster than anyone realized. Every time Jasmine reached out for reassurance, he pulled back a little more, not out of malice, but because he didn't know how to show the kind of support she needed. The tension wasn't dramatic. It was subtle, it was cumulative. And it was about to erupt. Family dynamics didn't make things easier. Matt's mother was quietly influencing decisions, dropping subtle hints and reinforcing doubts. And Jasmine was sensing it, feeling like she was constantly under evaluation. On top of that, friends were weighing in, giving advice that was well-meaning but only added to the pressure. Every whispered comment, every sly remark, piled on like bricks. And Jasmine, who had already carried so much, felt each one like a hammer. In the previous episode, we saw a few key moments that hinted at the storm to come. The way Matt paused before answering questions, the way Jasmine flinched when a sensitive topic was brought up, the quiet arguments that left both of them exhausted. These weren't one-off incidents. They were the breadcrumbs leading to the inevitable collapse. And you could almost feel Jasmine's heart tightening every time Matt offered a response that was more distant than comforting. Then there were the small, almost invisible moments that made a difference. The lingering glances that went unanswered. The tiny sighs after a conversation ended. The way Matt's focus sometimes seemed elsewhere. And Jasmine noticed all of it. She felt every inch of that emotional distance, even when she tried to ignore it, even when she reassured herself that this was normal for new parents. And those small moments, they were snowballing. And just when Jasmine thought she could breathe, Matt's next move turned her world upside down. There was also the pressure of the baby, Matilda, who didn't understand the tension in the house but certainly felt it. Every late-night feeding, every sleepless night, added another layer to Jasmine's stress. She was juggling the role of mother, partner, and emotional caretaker for a man who sometimes seemed unreachable. And Matt, on the other hand, felt trapped. He loved his daughter but struggled with expressing the kind of emotions Jasmine needed. Both were carrying heavy loads, but they weren't carrying them together, they were carrying them alongside each other, and the friction was mounting. By the end of that episode, viewers could see it clearly. This wasn't just a rough patch. It was a relationship teetering on the edge. Every joke that fell flat, every ignored text, every withheld conversation added to the tension. And the stage was set for a revelation that would shock everyone. Matt had something to say that no one was expecting, and it was about to change everything. The anticipation was unbearable. Could they survive this? Could Jasmine handle the truth? And what about Matt? Was he finally ready to confront the reality that he had been avoiding for weeks? One thing was certain. The calm before the storm was over. Jasmine's world was unraveling quietly, in the small moments no one else saw. Every glance from Matt felt loaded, every pause in conversation like a warning. Fear had become her constant companion, her past trauma quietly whispering that love always ends in heartbreak. She carried insecurity like a second skin, a reminder of every relationship where she felt replaceable. But alongside that fear was an unshakable devotion to Matilda, a love so fierce it pushed her to endure more than she ever thought possible. Every tear she shed was a mix of worry for her daughter and the silent hope that Matt might see her efforts, might meet her halfway. Matt, on the other hand, seemed to be walking a different path. The man who once made promises now retreated behind walls of emotional withdrawal. His avoidance wasn't cruel, it was fear, fear of failing, fear of conflict, fear of being trapped in a relationship he felt unprepared to navigate. Every time Jasmine reached out, he pulled away a little more, as though protecting himself from emotional collapse. And yet, he stayed physically present. He attended feedings, helped with diapers, nodded at conversations, but his heart was elsewhere. You could see it in the flatness of his voice, the stiffness of his posture, the quiet distance that made even a shared living space feel lonely. Then came the triggers, small at first, almost insignificant, but they piled up like a storm ready to break. The expiration date comment, allegedly whispered to a friend, sent Jasmine into a spiral she couldn't control. Every step, every decision now felt temporary, fragile, and under threat. Family pressure didn't help. Matt's mother, subtly weighing in at every turn, reinforced her insecurities. And whispers of a replacement, of someone supposedly better suited for Matt, crept into Jasmine's mind, feeding doubts she couldn't shake. And just when things seemed tense enough, a small piece of paper appeared in her hands, a name and number that made her chest tighten like it would burst. What she discovered next would make even the strongest heart stop for a moment. A number written in Matt's jeans pocket. Jasmine didn't know if it meant something, didn't know the story behind it, but the timing made it feel like confirmation of every nightmare she'd been quietly battling. Her pulse raced, her hands shook, and she sat on the floor trying to breathe through the tight knot in her chest. The trust she had clung to was now a fragile thread, trembling in the winds of doubt. And Matt's response? Cold, dismissive, trying to minimize the fear instead of comforting it. The tension escalated when Jasmine overheard another conversation, Matt on the phone whispering words that froze her in place. I can't do this anymore. The voice was hushed, but the message was crystal clear. Was it to a friend, a family member, or someone else entirely? Jasmine didn't know, but her mind raced with every possible scenario. Each imagined betrayal, each unspoken truth, pushed her closer to the edge. She tried to hold herself together for Matilda, tried to convince herself that she was overreacting, but nothing quieted the storm inside. Then came the leak. Matt's interview surfaced online, and suddenly, every viewer got a peek into his mindset. He needed clarity, he needed stability, he didn't know if Jasmine could provide it. For Jasmine, it was another blow, like being punched by reality itself. She had already felt abandoned, unseen, misunderstood, and now the world could witness her pain. Social media erupted with speculation. Friends chimed in with opinions, and the tiny walls she had built to protect herself began to crumble. And just when she thought she could process one revelation, another truth hit. Matt's emotional distance wasn't accidental. It was deliberate, a slow pullback she had been blind to until the evidence stacked up. Through it all, there were brief flashes of humor, almost ironic in how painfully predictable the behavior seemed. How often had we seen this pattern in reality TV couples? The silent withdrawal, the defensive excuses, the constant tension. And yet, that humor was tempered with empathy. These were two people trying to survive in the chaos of new parenthood, past baggage, and high expectations. One was reaching for connection, the other was retreating in fear. The clash was inevitable, and every audience member could feel the emotional weight. And just when the drama felt unbearable, Jasmine's resilience began to peek through. She wasn't powerless, she wasn't entirely at the mercy of Matt's decisions. Her mind raced, planning, protecting, preparing. Every revelation, every whisper, every paper, every overheard word was another challenge she faced with trembling strength. The stakes had never been higher, and the fallout of these conflicts was only beginning to reveal itself. And in a moment that no one could predict, a final confrontation loomed on the horizon, one that promised to change everything. Jasmine stood in the living room, her arms shaking, her voice barely holding together as she tried to make Matt see her. Every word was a plea, every tear a reflection of months of fear and hope crashing into one another. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for the tiny life in her arms, the daughter who depended on her stability. And yet Matt looked at her as if she were speaking another language. His expression was flat, his movements careful, measured, distant. Could someone so close feel so far away? Do you even care what this does to me? Jasmine whispered, her voice cracking. Her exhaustion was palpable, she had been carrying this weight alone for weeks. Every sleepless night, every missed reassurance, every small dismissal had piled up like stones on her chest. She wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him understand that his detachment was crushing everything they'd built. And just when she thought her words might finally land, Matt's silence hit harder than any argument ever could. He didn't yell, he didn't defend himself, he barely moved. The emotional gap between them was widening with every passing second, and Jasmine could feel it. She felt it in the quiet, in the way he avoided her gaze, in the way he answered questions with minimal effort. She felt it like a physical force, pressing her down, mocking her hope. If you were in her shoes, could you stay? Could you watch someone you love retreat into walls while you're left to carry the emotional fallout alone? Her heart pounded as she pressed on, each word exposing vulnerability, fear, and desperation. She reminded him of promises made, of plans discussed, of dreams shared. Every phrase was layered with maternal instinct, every mention of Matilda, every concern for her daughter's future, every tear she shed, was a silent alarm signaling how serious the stakes were. And right when you think she's reached the breaking point, the next twist hits harder than anyone imagined. Matt's behavior didn't change. He deflected, minimized, even dismissed some of her concerns, framing her intensity as overreaction. But this wasn't exaggeration, it was lived experience. A woman navigating new motherhood while feeling unseen, unheard, and unsafe in her own home. Family interference lingered in the background, whispers and opinions adding weight to every interaction. Could she fight a partner and an entire system of influence at the same time? Her tears weren't just sadness, they were shock, humiliation, disbelief. A small revelation flickered in the middle of this confrontation. Matt had apparently shared doubts with a friend, doubts Jasmine didn't know existed until now. She processed it like a punch to the gut. Could it really be true? Was every hope she held in her hands about to shatter completely? And the worst part, he wasn't hiding it from malice. He was hiding it out of fear, fear of hurting her, fear of conflict, fear of committing emotionally to a relationship that already felt unstable in his mind. And even as she tried to process this, another subtle hint surfaced. His eyes lingered on his phone, a reminder of secrets she might never fully uncover. The room became a battlefield of emotion. Jasmine's intensity collided with Matt's detachment. Every tear was met with avoidance, every pleading glance with calm, calculated distance. And yet, there was a rhythm to it, a cruel inevitability. Each revelation, each minor clue, each avoidance fed her growing realization. Trust had been eroded, slowly and quietly, until the foundation could no longer hold. Behavior matters more than words, and his behavior screamed louder than any apology could. She finally paused, exhausted beyond words, her chest heaving. The silence that followed was deafening. For a moment, it was as if time had stopped. And then came a subtle shift, almost imperceptible. Matt's brief sigh, the smallest twitch of guilt, the smallest acknowledgement that he understood the gravity of her despair, but it was fleeting. And Jasmine knew, in that instant, that she couldn't rely on him to meet her halfway. And just when it seemed like the confrontation might reach resolution, a final, unspoken bombshell hovered in the air, promising more heartbreak to come. Even in this collapse, there was a spark of resilience. Jasmine wasn't giving up entirely, she was recalibrating, preparing to protect Matilda no matter what. Her heartbreak was profound, but it carried a hidden strength, a silent vow to survive and shield her daughter from the fallout. And as she held her baby close, wiping away tears she wished no one saw, she made a choice. She would not let this emotional betrayal define her. And if you think this is the end of the drama, wait. Because the next episode promises twists that could shake their world even further. After the confrontation, Jasmine moved through her apartment like a ghost. Every step felt heavy, each breath a reminder of the storm that had just passed. She folded tiny clothes for Matilda, washed bottles, wiped away the quiet tears she didn't want anyone to see. The house was still, but inside her mind, chaos raged. Thoughts bounced between guilt, anger, and exhaustion. Could she have done more? Should she have seen the signs earlier? Every memory of Matt's detachment, every whisper of replacement, every expiration date comment replayed in her mind like a relentless loop. Her maternal instinct was sharp, almost painful. Holding Matilda close, she whispered promises to protect her, to give her a safe home, to shield her from the emotional fallout of adult mistakes. And yet, the quiet despair was heavy. Jasmine questioned her self-worth. wondering if her past heartbreaks had set a precedent for this one. Was she always destined to feel secondary, replaceable, or misunderstood? Even as she tried to rebuild, the shadow of Matt's decisions loomed over every step she took. Meanwhile, Matt's world looked very different. Outwardly calm, inwardly tense, he rationalized every choice he made. In his mind, walking away was about avoiding disaster, preventing more pain, and reclaiming a sense of stability he felt incapable of offering. Family expectations and subtle pressures loomed large, every word from his mother, every implied comparison, every what if echoing in his head. Emotional avoidance became his shield, his mechanism for self preservation. He stayed physically present for Matilda, but emotionally, he had retreated to a space only he could occupy. Fans online didn't miss a beat. Social media exploded with reactions, opinions, and hot takes. Some viewers felt immense sympathy for Jasmine, praising her resilience, her devotion to Matilda, and her courage to confront emotional neglect head on. Others criticized Matt, dissecting his detachment, questioning his commitment, and speculating about his motives. Comments flew fast. How could he be so cold? She deserves better than this emotional roller coaster. Family interference ruined everything. Online, viewers became amateur psychologists, behavioral analysts, and armchair commentators all at once. And the discussions were relentless. Yet, for every post defending Jasmine, there were ones urging caution. Maybe Matt is overwhelmed, some argued. Parenthood is hard, and he's dealing with it in his own way. The split opinions created a tension mirroring the show itself, giving fans a chance to debate motives, ethics, and emotional intelligence. Every comment added a layer to the unfolding narrative, making the breakup feel larger than just a private matter. It was public property, analyzed and dissected by thousands. And just when you thought the fan chatter had peaked, whispers about custody and future confrontations started surfacing online. Jasmine, however, wasn't scrolling through social media. She had too much to process, too much at stake. Nights were the hardest. Feeding Matilda became a ritual of both care and reflection. The soft sounds of the baby cooing contrasted sharply with the echoes of her heartbreak. She revisited every argument, every moment of tension, replaying them to understand, to learn, to prevent the same mistakes from happening again. But there was no neat closure. Each day brought fresh reminders. A text Matt forgot to reply to, a quiet sigh when he passed her by, the lingering tension in spaces they once shared freely. Behaviorally, the situation revealed patterns worth noting. Jasmine's response was rooted in intense empathy, combined with years of emotional survival. Matt's avoidance highlighted fear of confrontation, discomfort with vulnerability, and the heavy influence of external pressures. The dynamic was less about malice and more about incompatible emotional languages. And as viewers, it raised questions. How do personal histories shape conflict resolution? How much does family influence tip the scales in intimate relationships? And crucially, when is it healthier to step away rather than persist? Social reactions amplified these reflections. Online polls, comment threads, and fan theories speculated endlessly about what might happen next. Would Jasmine fight for custody? Would Matt reconcile or continue his emotional distance? Could family interference be neutralized, or was it an ongoing obstacle? Each unanswered question acted as a mini cliffhanger, teasing viewers to stay engaged and return for updates. Even subtle hints about custody complications were enough to keep the tension alive, drawing eyes to every social post and episode clip. Jasmine also reflected on herself. Her resilience wasn't born overnight, it was forged in repeated heartbreak and tested in real time now. She recognized patterns, acknowledged vulnerabilities, and silently vowed to hold herself to new standards of self-respect and emotional boundaries. Behavior mattered more than words. Actions would define the next chapter, not the tears she shed or the apologies she never received. Watching Matt withdraw was painful, yes, but it also clarified her path forward. She could protect Matilda, nurture herself, and regain control over the parts of her life that truly mattered. For viewers, the story served as both drama and cautionary tale. Relationships are not only about love, they're about communication, trust, and the subtle ways external pressures can seep into personal spaces. Observing Jasmine and Matt offered lessons in resilience, boundaries, and the human need for emotional reciprocity. And the social buzz only reinforced this. Thousands of voices debating right, wrong, and everything in between, proving that human behavior always invites scrutiny. The emotional weight of this aftermath was tangible. Jasmine's world was fractured, but it was also alive with potential. Each decision she made, from self-care to protecting Matilda, carried meaning. Each reaction from Matt, from silence to rationalization, shaped the ongoing narrative. And social media acted as a mirror, reflecting public opinion back to them, reminding everyone how public drama and personal heartbreak often collide. As the dust settled, questions lingered. Could Jasmine rebuild fully without Matt? Would custody tensions escalate? How would Matt's fear-driven choices impact Matilda's life? And most importantly, how would fans continue to weigh in, amplifying pressure and scrutiny? Even as she tried to rebuild, the shadow of Matt's decisions loomed over every step she took. And as the screen fades to black, one thought remains: the story isn't over. Emotional fallout, public opinion, and lingering questions guarantee that the next episode will be impossible to ignore. Fans are already theorizing, hashtags are trending, and the real tension, the one that hits hard in every viewer's chest, is yet to fully resolve. The next chapter promises even more drama, more heartbreak, and perhaps a revelation that could change everything again. Jasmine sat alone in the quiet of her living room, Matilda asleep in her arms. The house felt emptier than ever, each shadow stretching across the walls like a reminder of everything that had just collapsed. She breathed in slowly, trying to steady the whirlwind inside her head. The confrontation with Matt had left bruises that no one could see, scars on her heart that weren't yet ready to fade. Every moment since had been a mixture of care for her daughter, reflection on the past, and preparation for a future that suddenly felt uncertain. Could she ever trust the stability of love again? Her maternal instincts were sharper than ever. Every coo from Matilda, every tiny sigh, felt like a gift, a reason to hold herself together even when the world threatened to pull her apart. Jasmine's strength wasn't loud or theatrical, it was quiet, determined, and deeply human. She had weathered heartbreak before, but this time, the stakes were higher. A child was involved, a life she felt responsible for protecting from emotional fallout, from secrets, and from the fractures of a relationship gone wrong. And yet, despite exhaustion and despair, there was a glimmer of resolve forming. She wasn't going to crumble, she was going to learn, adapt, and rise, one step at a time. Matt's cold exit lingered like an unwelcome echo. Watching him detach, rationalize, and retreat into his own emotional cocoon left Jasmine grappling with unanswered questions. Was it fear of commitment, pressure from family, or simply the realization that he couldn't provide the emotional support Jasmine needed? Behaviorally, his actions spoke louder than apologies ever could. And while anger flared occasionally, it was mixed with a profound sadness. The sadness of recognizing that love sometimes isn't enough to overcome incompatible emotional languages. And just when you think she's reached closure, subtle hints of Matt's next move begin to surface, keeping her, and the audience, on edge. Family interference had been a constant shadow over the relationship. Whispered advice, unasked for opinions, and subtle judgments created a pressure cooker that neither Jasmine nor Matt could fully escape. Every decision he made seemed influenced by someone else's expectations, while Jasmine bore the brunt of the emotional fallout. Fans online were dissecting every interaction, every glance, and every cryptic message. Family always complicates things, one comment read. Jasmine deserves a man who can stand on his own, not one who bends to everyone else. The commentary added another layer of tension, reinforcing the drama without ever altering the reality Jasmine faced in her day-to-day life. Despite all the chaos, Jasmine's reflection revealed an evolving sense of self. She recognized patterns in her relationships, identified where she had given too much, and began forming boundaries that would protect her emotional space. It wasn't about revenge or resentment. It was about clarity, stability, and love for Matilda. Each decision she made became a statement. Her life and her child's life would not be dictated by someone else's fear or avoidance. This growing resilience gave viewers a powerful takeaway. Heartbreak can be transformative, but only if it is met with self-awareness, courage, and intention. Even in the midst of despair, Jasmine's determination sent a silent message that the next chapter could belong entirely to her. Yet unresolved tensions simmered under every carefully managed moment. Matt's withdrawal left questions about custody, visitation, and emotional responsibility unanswered. Would he step back in at a crucial moment, or would his absence become a permanent fixture? And what about the subtle clues of secrecy, hints of communication about leaving the home, and whispers of family meddling? The audience was left to wonder if Matt's cold behavior was a temporary defense or the start of a longer-term pattern. Every glance, every pause, every online post became a breadcrumb in a trail that promised further drama. Fans were already speculating across social media. Theories ranged from Matt eventually realizing his mistakes to him completely retreating from responsibility. Some argued Jasmine should take legal action. Others predicted reconciliation under a dramatic twist. Comments exploded with concern for Matilda, empathy for Jasmine, and critiques of Matt's detachment. Each post, each theory, served to heighten anticipation for the next episode, effectively extending the emotional investment far beyond the screen. And when viewers think they've pieced together the story, subtle hints about custody complications and family pressures suggest the game is far from over. Jasmine's emotional arc reached a pivotal point here. She was not only processing heartbreak but actively redefining her life. Reflection, care, and emotional intelligence guided her next steps. She questioned every choice Matt had made, but also recognized what she could control, her actions, her boundaries, and the stability she could create for Matilda. These reflections offered behavioral insight for viewers. Actions have consequences, avoidance doesn't erase responsibility, and emotional resilience is forged in the crucible of real-life challenges. The next twist remained hidden, simmering beneath layers of heartbreak and social commentary. Small signs hinted at potential confrontations, unexpected revelations, and questions about who would step up or step back. The stakes were high, and every detail, from family whispers to leaked interviews, kept the audience guessing. Viewers were left on edge, anticipating the next emotional eruption, wondering who would apologize, who would retreat, and which secret might finally come to light. Next time, the truth comes out, and one revelation changes everything you thought you knew about Matt and Jasmine. In this episode, we saw Jasmine's strength and resilience shine, even amid betrayal and uncertainty. Her quiet determination and protective instincts toward Matilda contrasted sharply with Matt's emotional withdrawal. Fans connected with her humanity, rooted in both vulnerability and courage. Meanwhile, Matt's actions served as a behavioral study in avoidance, fear, and familial influence, offering viewers a lens to examine their own relationships and emotional dynamics. The story didn't end with heartbreak, it ended with possibility. The aftermath left questions unanswered, emotions raw, and stakes higher than ever. Every social media reaction, every family whisper, and every private reflection contributed to a larger narrative, one that promised shocking revelations and high-stakes emotional payoffs in the next installment. The audience, having invested deeply, was now ready for what comes next, compelled by both curiosity and empathy. As the screen fades, the lingering thought is clear. Jasmine is not finished, Matt's motives are unresolved, and the story's twists are far from over. The emotional fallout, social scrutiny, and psychological layers ensure that viewers return, eager to see what happens when courage meets consequence, when love meets betrayal, and when one mother's determination collides with a father's avoidance.